Okay, so continuing on with fungi, but actually before we start, I just want to make it clear that this, starting with this slide, the PowerPoint slide, this will not be included in the quiz that's due over the weekend. Okay, because I am recording this on Friday. I mean, sorry, not Friday, Thursday. And so just to let you know, okay. All right, so last time we left off here where we looked at how fungi are more closely related to animals than they are to land plants. And so we're going to start with this phylogenetic tree that's based off of gene sequences. And if we start here at the top of the phylogenetic tree, we can see that the fungi are the sister group to animals and choanoflagellates. Choanoflagellates are a protists. Okay? And the hypothesis is that fungi evolved from have aquatic origins, but the switch an aquatic from the aquatic life to terrestrial life happened very early in the evolution of fungi. And if we look at the rest of these lineages, starting at the top here with the chytrids and the Zygomycetes, and just as a reminder, Zygomycetes is just another way to say Zygomycota. Okay? They mean the same group. Here we could see a polytomy at the top. As you recall from previous lectures, a polytomy is when you have an ancestral node that branches off into three or more lineages. Okay. And so what that means is that there's not enough information to know which one of these are more closely related to each other. And then we have the glomerulomycota. Okay, that forms a monophyletic group. We have the basidiomycota, also monophyletic. Okay. These are the ones that have the club-like basidium. So basidium were those cells that allow for where meiosis occurs. And then we have the ascomycota, which have these sac-like uh, ascus. Okay. And these also form a monophyletic group. So what are some of the themes that occur in the diversification of fungi? Well, all the fungi absorb food from their surroundings. And so evolution of novel methods for absorbing nutrients from a wide array of food sources drove the diversification of fungi. And fungi often participate in symbioses. So it's thought that the first plants in the fossil record were closely associated with fungal fossils. And the ability to absorb nutrients from fungi may have been crucial in the early evolution of land plants. So fungi and land plants often have a symbiotic relationship. So there's several types of symbioses. There's mutualistic, which the where the relationship or association benefits both species. There's the parasitic relationship where one species benefits at the cost of the other. And then there's the commensal relationship where one species benefits and the other one is unaffected by the relationship. Okay. So one hypothesis is that fungi obtain food in the form of carbon-containing compounds from the plants, okay, that they live on. And to test this was to introduce radioactively labeled carbon dioxide into air surrounding plants that did not contain the symbiotic fungi. And they compared those with the plants that did have symbiotic fungi. Okay. So here's the experiment. So you have two plants. One of them has the mycorrhizal fungi present, the other one does not. And so what they did here was they um, they labeled carbon treatments. So it was radioactive carbon that they exposed the plants to. Okay. And then in the other group, they had a plant that have the the fungi in the roots, and then another plant that did not have the fungi in the roots. And in this one, they treated the soil with uh, phosphorus and nitrogen. And so what they found was that the relationship between plants and mycorrhizal fungi is mutualistic. Okay? Because in the first experiment here, they did see that up to 20% of the labeled carbon dioxide had been taken up by the plant and transmitted to the mycorrhizal fungi. Okay? And also, they found that the large amounts of phosphorus and nitrogen um, that were put into the soil were also found in the plant. Okay? So there's two types of plant mycorrhizal interactions. There's the ectomycorrhizal fungi and there's arbuscular mycorrhizal fungi. And these have distinctive morphologies, functions, and geographic distributions. The ectomycorrhizal fungi are found on tree species and temperate regions. So these form a dense network of hyphae that cover the plant roots and extend into the soil, but they don't penetrate the root cells. So they just form a sheath around the cells. So the ectomycorrhizal fungi hyphae penetrate decaying material and releases peptidases. So these are enzymes that break down proteins. And then the hyphae transports those amino acids that are broken off from the proteins and transports them to the plant roots. The ectomycorrhizal fungi also provide phosphate ions to the host plant. And in return, the, the mycorrhizal fungi receive sugars from the plant. Okay, so here you can see the ectomycorrhizal fungi forming the sheets around the roots, and they penetrate between the roots. So they penetrate between the root cells, but not through the root cells. Okay. So here's the hyphae extending outward into the soil, and then also the hyphae extending inward between the cells of the root. So this whole thing is the root. So the hyphae is releasing uh, the peptidases. Okay, it's breaking down the proteins into amino acids, and then it's transporting those proteins in between the root cells. In arbuscular mycorrhizal fungi, the hyphae grow into the cells of the root tissue. And these are also called endomycorrhizal fungi because they grow inside the root cell walls. The hyphae inside the plant cell wall are an adaptation that increases the surface area for exchange of molecules between fungus and host. So the hyphae form a pipeline extending from inside the plant roots into the soil well beyond the root. Okay, so here you can see the hyphae going, uh, penetrating the cells, the cell walls of the root. Endophytes are organisms that live between and within plant cells. They live in close association with roots or above ground tissues in land plants. So these were unknown before the 1940s, but they're extremely common and highly diverse. And some increase the drought tolerance of plants. Others produce compounds that can help the plant by deterring or killing herbivores. And then these are also receiving benefits, the sugar benefits from plants. Other types of symbioses. So many plant-eating insects have yeast species in their guts that allow them to digest or detoxify plant compounds. And then you have the lichens, which is an association between uh, fungi. Usually it's the Amicidae, or sorry, not Amicidae, the Ascomycota or Ascomycete fungi with an algae species, or it can also be Cyanobacterium. Then we have some fungi that parasitize insects and dramatically change the insect's behavior. So here we're talking about things like ants. Okay. Here you can see the lichen on a branch, and when you look at a cross section of lichen, you can see the dense hyphae. So this is part of the fungi covering the on the outside here. Okay, because remember a cross section. So you're looking if this is like the I don't know, like the branching of the lichen, they're cutting it from the front. And then you can see the underneath the hyphae, the green algae. So here, just like in plants, the the fungi is receiving the sugars from the algae, which it makes from photosynthesis. Okay. And the algae receives protection, so it provides a moist environment for the algae to live in. Oh, here's the one where the fungi parasitizes insects, and they dramatically change the behavior. So it does affect the ants, and what it does is it makes the ants sort of when it's ready to reproduce, it will make the ants bite down on the leaf, and then the reproductive structures of the fungus will sprout out of the head of the ant in order to reproduce. So that's why these are called the zombie ants, okay? Because they're under some type of mind control by the fungus. Okay, so we'll stop on this one, and then we'll continue with the on the next on the next slide.